You're listening to The Rich Life Revolution with me, Michelle Cooper. My mission is to empower you to step into your next level of wealthy. You'll hear all the deets, a little bit of inspiration, and real life takeaways so that you can create your own rich life revolution. Let's dig in. Welcome back to the Rich Life Revolution. I'm Michelle, your host, and today I want to know if you've ever had the sense that there's got to be a way to get more of what you want without burning the candle at both ends, day in and day out. I have been searching for the answer to this question for years. Today's episode of the Rich Life Revolution is tailor-made for you if this is a question that you are answering. My guest, Jo Peters, also known as the Unicorn Coach, remembers when she forgot about her horn and her rainbow tail. Rather than living life and doing business on her own terms, she bowed to the outdated and unsustainable constraints society created hundreds of years ago and hasn't gotten around to updating. Today, Jo helps working moms whose hearts wish for more, but whose brains might be telling them to be grateful for what they have. She guides them on their journey towards quote unquote having it all without doing it all. Is that even possible? Are you feeling inspired by this? I hope so. Let's dive into this episode. Jo shares amazing gold with us today. Hey, Jo, it's so good to see you. I am so looking forward to our talk today.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me and for being willing to share this with your audience and your community.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about you, your experience. I know you got a lot of stuff under your belt and a lot of accomplishments, but I would love to hear you brag about yourself for a little bit.
Okay, so I am the unicorn coach, and I am the unicorn coach because my magic power is as a unicorn go and see around and find those unicorns that forgot that they are unicorns and they are behaving like regular horses. And my power is go around and say, hey, help you to remember that you are a unicorn, not a freaking horse. And that magical power came after I behaved like a horse for many years. As an engineer, I started my career in a Fortune 100 company in manufacturing. So I was the youngest female, the only female in a world dominated by male. And then when I moved to the United States, I was also the only Latina. And thanks to genes, I also look a lot younger than what I'm actually are. So that didn't help because everybody was like, oh, you were just in diapers a year ago. And I'm like, so but all of that made me start trying to fit into what I thought would be acceptable to keep moving up. And I literally forgot about my horn, about my pink purple lipstick and my girly things. And I went like a horse for many years. And that transformation into waking up and saying, no, I'm not a horse, I'm a unicorn, and I don't have to pretend to be a horse, helped me to move into a transition. I work for two Fortune 100 companies, travel the world, 25 countries, 4 continents. And in the beginning of 2019, I was so frustrated because my sole purpose and my desire to create impact and change and help to change the world was not being satisfied on these companies. Even when I was reaching 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people at a time, I was hitting that ceiling of everything was based on the stock price. So I was getting a huge misalignment with my values. So I decided to move away from that and start working with females, with working females, with working moms to help them to embrace that unicorn life and start believing that they can have it all without doing it all, by tapping into their own magical recipe and their own magic, instead of trying to copy and do what others are telling them this is the right path.
I love how you say they can have it all without doing it all, because I think so often we, especially women, think we do have to do it all. Like it's all up to us and we have to do all these things and get all this stuff done and do the heavy lifting ourselves. And so for me, that was like a big kind of like aha moment or light bulb moment when I somebody said like, why don't you hire a housekeeper? I was like, what? Like, that's for rich people. But that was just my belief, right? It was like, oh no, I have to do it all. I have to be the one who cooks and cleans and looks after the kids and has the, seven-figure business and it, like does all these things. And so understanding that I can have it all, but I don't have to do it all. And now I'm just like, what else? I am always looking for stuff I can pawn off on people. Like, what else can I delegate? Who else can I hire to do these things that I don't want to do anymore? Because it doesn't matter to me whether it's something around my house or it's something in my business or, whatever. Like, if I can get somebody else to do it, I'm all for that.
And I think that that is part of my passion in life, because what I've been seeing is there is two very specific groups of females. The first one is the one that do not even believe that they can have it all. So that group is even like always compromising because it's not even possible in their beliefs, or they buy into, oh, you can have it all but not at once. So again, that compromising of, okay, I can have it all but not at once, so what I'm going to sacrifice. So that is the first one. And then the second one is the group like you and me that were like, I can have it all. But then the society brainwash into, we need to raise our kids like if we didn't work, and we need to work like if we didn't have kids, and all that structure that was designed centuries ago, where we were not playing a big role, is making us believe that we need to do it all, and that is a badge of honor, and that we need to do it all. It is almost like a something to be proud of, and work harder. And then what happened is, we know that is not sustainable. So we try to do it all, try to do it all, crash and get burned out, or have a big issue, usually with our family, with our relationships. And then we move from that bubble to the other bubble. See, it's not possible. I try, but it's not possible. So now I go back into compromising. And I love what you were saying into how many things we assume that are out of a league. I was talking with a client, with somebody in January, that were thinking about the housekeeping. And I was like, hey, trust me, that was the best decision that I made. And I will tell you this, you will not believe this, but improve my relationship with my husband. Like, exponentially, our relationship is better because now we have that help in the house.
Totally. I completely agree with that because I'm not married now. I'm divorced now, but when I was married, you got your business or you have your job or your career, whatever it is, right? And you got the kids and you got all the things you got to do. And then you got to spend Saturday cleaning the house. That over time will lead to resentment. And you might not even be aware that it's leading to resentment, but it will come out in your interaction with your partner. And that's what I found. Like, we couldn't have had a housekeeper when we were together because that was beyond his comprehension. Like, I don't know that he would ever been able to deal with that. But as soon as we split, that was the first thing I did was hire a housekeeper. And then like now, I have kids who are in university, and so they're on payroll in my business and they have things to do. And one of the things that one of them does is the grocery shopping. And it's like, that's your job. Like, I haven't been to a grocery store in years. It's not something I enjoy, but I had to be willing to honor and even be able to like say out loud, I don't want to do that anymore and not feel guilty because there's a judgment around it.
And I think that the judgment start with us, and that definition of what a woman and what a mom is, with things like, for example, the default partner, and that Like I was telling you, like one of the things that I work is the square watermelon, and that is the entire structure of business, of working, of companies, of leadership was designed centuries ago by white males for white males. The reality is, when that was being designed, they had not only a wife, but also mates, two or three mates that take care of everything else. So the structure is broken because it's designed for something that is not the current reality of 50% of us. But instead of us stepping up and say, stop, this is not working, this game and these rules are broken, that they cannot work, we are being, year after year, trying to make it work. And we are a watermelon, round watermelon, trying to fit into a square, trying to become a square watermelon, making it work, doing whatever we need to fit into what we were being to believe that was the right thing to do, because our standard for mom, for wife, for woman is a standard that was different 40, 50, 60, 100 years ago. I will tell you a funny story that I tell always my moms. Simple things like the default parent. Like, my toddler is 2.5. And one day I work from home. My husband works from home some days, but works in the corporate world. My baby was sick. And without even thinking about it, I canceled all my appointments to take my baby to the pediatrician. And in the pediatrician room, I was like, wait a second, why this was not even a discussion? Why by default, from the two of us, I am the one that changed my world? So I called him almost upset. He was like, why are you upset with me? And I'm like, I'm not upset with you, I'm upset with myself. And I'm going to tell you that this is the last time that this ever happened. These are the kind of things that we need to start being aware and pause and say, why am I default? Why I am the one doing the groceries? I'm the same with you. I like, if I go to the groceries, like, I actually get lost because it's been years since I'm not being in the grocery. So being able to feel empowered into challenge what is always being. Why I'm always the one doing the laundry? Why I'm always the one doing the dishes? Why you feel so uncomfortable with having help? And I think that part of that is us having communities and podcasts and sisters like us that shows it is okay. There is no judgment, and if there is judgment, you know what? That is not the people that you want to be around.
Exactly. And, it's funny. I was just on a trip and I don't know, talking about sitting around having drinks and talking about life and stuff. And one of the ladies was, saying that she hates cooking and she hates grocery shopping. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't been to the grocery store since before COVID. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I just don't go. Like, I just decided that that's not how I want to spend my time. My daughter does the grocery shopping, or we have it delivered, and she orders it online, and it all works out great. And she was like, oh, that must be nice. I'm like, well, anybody can make that decision though. And so that's where we have to, I think, recognize, like, for me, I have to be secure in myself to kind of declare what is the right decision for me and be okay with whatever somebody thinks about that. Somebody might think it's awesome and somebody might be like, what a princess. Oh my God. Right. But that's okay. I don't really care. Like, it can take some work to get there. It's not always like natural, I think, for us as women to go there.
I think that is part of that brainwash that we were talking before, and that is that the part of normalizing that what is important for each of us is different, and then what having it all means for each of us, because what having it all means to you is different than what it means to Patricia, what it means to me, what it means to Sarah. And when we start honoring that and say, hey, this is what having it all means to me, and based on that, these are the things that are important for me. They're going to be, I'm the same. I don't like cooking and grocery, but there are women that love cooking and love going and picking the right strawberry. Or, for example, I know friends of mine that hate doing dishes. I don't. I don't have any problem. So it's about us claiming our power and being able to articulate what I want, what I don't want, what I like, what I don't like, and then what I don't like, being comfortable to say, who else? I'm not here in this house alone. Who else can help? Because the other one that is being a misservice for us females, I think, because for males, I don't see it as a strong, is the concept of motherhood selfless love. So we grow up as females seeing the moms and the grandmas sacrificing, suffering, putting everybody else first, eating when it's cold. And then we start assuming that that was the expectation, that that was normal, that and that we need to normalize that that is not. I was reading a book from Rachel Cargle 2 weeks ago, and she was saying, your better self is your self rest. Saying is normalized that it's time, sisters. We are in 2024. It's time for us to say, I am first. I need to take care of me. I don't have to do things that I don't like. I don't have to be a victim or a sacrifice myself to show my kids that I love them, to show my partner that I love them, to show my boss or my clients that I'm worth it of business. No, we need to be done with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And it's so interesting because, we do live in very different times than our parents, than our grandparents, our great grandparents. And they, in many ways, I think, blazed a trail for us to live life very differently. We live in a world where it's, I think, the easiest time in existence to start your own business. Like you can create a side hustle just on promoting products on Amazon. It's the easiest time in history for women to create the life that they want. The thing that gets in the way is what they believe is possible, I think, for them, and the self-judgment around that. So you work a lot with moms. When you're working with your clients, how do you help them see possibilities that are beyond what they have right in front of them?
So I think that two of the biggest breakthroughs for my moms and all women, especially moms, to have is the first one is understanding the concept of female and male bodies and minds work differently, starting from our cycle. So males' cycles are 24-hour cycles. And unfortunately, we talk about this because they were the ones creating the system. Everything is based on 24-hour cycles. Even our time is 24 hours. And that is because that is the time that it takes them to reset. So they reset every 24 hours. Our cycle is aligned with the moon, with our period. Is a 28-day cycle. So that is being one that is being game changer, because then instead of trying to fit that like the square watermelon into the 24-hour cycle reset, when we start honoring our own cycle, and that in some specific times of the cycle we are feeling more sensible or we are feeling more tired, instead of keep pushing into that go go go, what is wrong with me, why I cannot, I honor that and I start flowing from that female energy. I am big into honoring our female energy, and we already have enough decades of us muscling the male energy, and it's time for us to go back into that female energy, that is that ease, that flow, that cycling, moving. Because of course when you see male energy and it's 24 hours, then it's very fast. So because it's very fast, it's almost two lines, 0 and 24. So it's very stable. The energy for them is very stable. But when you see 28 days, then the loop is different. So that is the first one. And then the second one is honoring our archetypes. That was something that was game changer for me, when I understand that there's 8 archetypes and there are so many different ways of the personality types and archetypes to understand it. The game changer for me was that if you start seeing the world, the coaches, the gurus, the visible public figures in society right now, they most likely are 3 of the 8 personality types. Why that is an issue? because the other five only have that visibility standard of that is how we need to start the business. That is how I need to put boundaries. That is how I need to. But if that is not in their strengths, then becomes very frustrating and tiring because then the concept is what is wrong with me. Michelle can do it, and it's very easy for her to say, "Hey, I'm not going to do groceries anymore." But if that skill set, that personality trait is not in me, and I try to do the same, I'm gonna feel really uncomfortable, and then it's going back into, oh, then something is broken with me. Why I cannot do it? And then it's understanding that the path is very unique based on each of us' strengths. And yes, I think that we need coaches and mentors to look for it, but we also need to start understanding that it's not a cookie cutting, that we need to start thinking, okay, what are their strengths? What are the personality? How is that personality with me? I'm, for example, very direct, we call in archetypes a ruler. So I am very easy into, I'm saying, hey, if I'm not going to eat sweets because they trigger my depression, I don't care in front of who I am because that is my personality. But if you take the same person, struggle the same with depression and sugar, wants to cut it, but in her personality traits, she value and is stronger into a nurturer connector perspective, she's going to have a lot of a hell time saying no to her friends or in a family dinner or when her mother-in-law say, oh baby, I made this cake for you, I will be like, oh thank you so much, but I'm not going to eat it. That is my personality. Her personality, she will be like, it will be so painful that she will end eating it and she will look at me and say, what is wrong with me? You can do it and I can't, because our personalities are different. So I think that it starts in understanding our strengths, our personalities, and from there define what we want and what having it all means for us. Because the other thing, I don't know if I would love to hear your opinion on this, but we are also being so used to it, to that selfless, that we are so good asking for others. I love because you start saying brag about yourself. And I love it because one of the things that I do is we need to learn to be comfortable bragging and asking for what we want. Like last year, I was asking my community what having it all means to you. Or if you could have it all, like question was, if you could have it all, what will you have? You will not believe how many females ask for things for others.
Yeah, because we're conditioned. We're conditioned to, if we do, you know, if we're thinking about ourselves, so we're asking for what we want, or we're declaring what we desire, we're conditioned to think we're selfish. And, I was in that. I lived a lot of my years thinking that you have to put other people first and, you can't be selfish and all this stuff. But what I learned over probably the last 15-ish years is that being selfish is actually, it's like a hack. It's one of your fastest ways to not only create the life you desire, but also to remove things from your life that aren't serving you. And you gotta work into it, right? Like it takes a little bit, it takes practice. I remember a friend of mine said to me, actually, we did a podcast recording of, I think it's like episode 1 or something. And she was like, Michelle, if you can't ask for what you want in bed, you'll never be able to ask for money. And I was like, oh, yeah. Like I would never, if I think back to my 20s, 30s kind of thing, I would never have asked for what I want in bed, and I was not good at asking for money in my career. I hated performance reviews. I hated that annual salary thing you do with HR and stuff. Like I would never go back with like, no, actually I want more, or I would just accept what was being given to me.
With gratitude.
Totally, right? Like be grateful for what you got, right? And I just figured that this is life and this is how it is. And that's not true. Like, that is not true. So it's such a good conversation, I think, because so often women don't ask for what they want. They sometimes aren't clear on what they want because they can't even think of themselves first, right? You put all these other people in front of them. And so, how do you suggest people, if they're at the beginning, they're kind of like, "Oh, this sounds interesting to me." What is the what's something they can do to lean into that a little bit more?
Start very simple. Start with things that are not a big deal. Like telling your partner what you want on sex can be very intimidating. Telling your mother-in-law that you are not going to go on Thanksgiving can be very intimidating, can be very scary. Start asking for what you want in simple things like how many times, and I would love your audience to put comments on the episode. You are being in a restaurant, they serve you something that you didn't like, and then the waitress came and say, "How's everything?" And you're like, "Good, fine." So start by that. Like maybe this week, commit yourself into saying, if I don't like it, say, "Hey, you know what? It was not what I was expecting. I'm not liking it." They will feel uncomfortable. They don't need to change it. They don't need to give it for free. So take away the expectation of what is going to happen from then. It's just you articulating that. Another one is if you are going to a coffee shop, don't worry about being picky. Oh, can you please put a little more of milk? Or hey, this is something that I do sometimes because of the sugar thing. So I am very specific. Like, can you put just a quarter of the caramel? And then sometimes they are like, well, I don't have a spoon to measure it, but I will just do the best that I can. And I'm like, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So it's start with those things that are not big deals, that are every day, that small steps in the grocery store. Ask for what you want. If you are not finding something, ask for help. And that is start making that muscle of getting used to it, to saying no or to ask for what you want, because it is a muscle like any other muscle. The analogy of the gym, as more you use it, as more you're going to be able to exercise it. And one beautiful thing is how we do anything is how we do everything. So if you start in the small things, asking for what you want, saying no, putting those boundaries, in a blink of an eye, you're going to feel more comfortable asking your partner for what you want in bed, or at least being able to open the conversation into, hey, we never realized what we want, because you were very point on with the concept that one of the issues for us, like I was saying about the example of last year with my communities, we never had the time to ask for what we want. So a beautiful exercise that everybody can do is get a paper and say, what do I want? If I could have anything, and then the rules is it cannot be for your partner, it cannot be for your kids, it cannot be for your family, it cannot be to fix world hunger or world poverty for you. If we have a if Michelle and me had a magic wand and you could have anything and you could live your day any way that you can, how that would be. And that will start showing you what is important for you, what motivate you, what inspire you to start knowing yourself better. So, as you know yourself better, you are able to articulate more. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. This is what I can accept. This is what I cannot accept. Like your example on the race.
I love that. I love that. And I do really, the whole thing about the archetypes, it's just it's a game changer. You know, if you're not aware of your sacred money archetype, it's definitely a really key thing to know. To me, I live my life now through the combination of my human design and my archetypes. Right. So my top archetype is romantic, as my listeners know, because I talk about it all the time, and my second is maverick. And so when I realize, like, okay, there's these superpowers that I have nothing to do with willpower, right? I think so often, like you said about the cake, right? Like, I love cake and I love icing. I love the experience of having cake. To me, it's very luxurious, and it's one of my, or it doesn't even need to be cake. It could be some really awesome piece of food. And I'm not even a foodie, but I love the experience of it.
Is the pleasure that gives to your romantic, that pleasure.
Totally. So what I learned for myself about myself is that if I'm trying to kind of, let's say, reduce the calories I'm taking or the amount of sugar or something, instead of like reduction, I have to add in things. So I have to add in things that I really, really love. And it doesn't have to be more cake. So, for example, I found these little protein balls at Whole Foods, and they've got cacao and dates and coconut on the outside. They're absolutely delicious. They kind of taste like cake, but I can replace, a piece of decadent chocolate cake for one of those and get the protein that I need. It's like a sub instead of like, oh, I have to remove all the cake from my life and just have salad, for example, right? That's not going to work for me. But for somebody else like yourself, like maybe a ruler, that could work because that's just how it is. That's how you make your decisions. So thank you for bringing that up because I think that sometimes people think the archetypes or personality types or whatever it is, even human design, they think, oh, well, that's, it's just a piece of information. It can change your life. Like it can change your freaking life.
I think that there is not a one recipe that is right or wrong. I think that there is a recipe for each of us to be successful. If you told me if I had a magic one, my magic one would be that everybody had that knowledge of the human design, the archetypes, and that you could start deciding based on that knowledge of what are your top three, what are the other ones that are not as strong and you would like to start using, and use that information to choose who you engage with. Oh, for example, if you're a romantic, and that is good, then if you are working with a coach or a teacher or a guru that is a main accumulator ruler that are very directed details and they don't know about archetypes, they are going to be so hard for you that you're going to be like, I lost my money. I don't care. I don't even want to join her anymore. But then it is about that. Like if I had anything in the world, I would love everybody to have that conversation. Say, hey, I'm thinking on having a relationship with you. I'm thinking on you helping me with something. What are your archetypes? What is your human design? To know, I'm not saying that romantic only can work with romantic and rulers only with rulers, but depending on that understanding, then there's going to be a lot less frustration and a lot of less disappointment because unfortunately what happened is we tend to not think even that there was not a good match or that the coach was not prepared to handle and support us by default because of the role of the authority. We think, what is wrong with me? I was not able to do what she or he or them told me. The diet, I was not able to do this. Of course, you are not. If you are a connector, a nurturer, a romantic, black and white, following like accumulator and ruler approaches are not going to be successful for you. And guess what? 99% of the diet industry is being led by rulers and accumulators. So 99% of the diets are telling you exactly to do something that you are not going to be able for nature to be sustainable on. And that is what is so game changer. I agree with you.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So, what I found for me is like, okay, I know myself better, right? I know my archetypes, I know my human design, I know my strengths and my weaknesses, right? I also know that, so I use human design and money archetypes to make decisions in my life as to who I work with, just like you said, coaches, whoever it is, right? So when I was looking for new accountant, I was like, I need you to do this, these two things. I need to know what your human design is and what I know already that I want somebody who is an accumulator because I don't have an attention to detail. I almost, in that area of my life, I need somebody to support me who's basically the opposite end of the spectrum as me because they're going to catch the things I'm not even looking at. And so it's so interesting because I was like, wow, I can use these kind of profiles. I can kind of like in my mind design a profile of somebody and basically call that in because now I know who I'm looking for instead of just random. And I realize this because part in my business, we get their human design and we get their disc and their Colby and we get their sacred money archetype. And I do have a profile based on, and it's pretty flexible, but based on the role, like if I'm hiring a bookkeeper, I'm looking for a certain profile. Now, a lot of my bookkeepers are accumulators because they have attention to detail. However, what I realized is that if we have clients who are accumulators and the bookkeeper is an accumulator, they won't be a good match to work together because they are actually both focused on finding some of the problems that are going on in the situation, right? So they're hunting around trying to fix problems, and they both have a really high attention to detail. So I found that my accumulator bookkeepers work way better with connector and nurturer clients and romantics.
And I think that it start becoming almost like a strategic game into, okay, instead of gambling and saying, oh, bye bye. I remember one of my clients last year, super successful, almost 8 figures business, had a very strong alchemist, so love archetypes, love all these, but had such a huge resistance into using it for his her hiring process, and was having issues hiring because she was hiring the people that was not right. And we start working on it. At the end, they were like, "Oh, but that is so woo woo, and that not such a, again, the patriarchal idea of what business is, what a company is." And it literally changed her business because then, as part of the coaching and everything, we were like, "Okay, send it." She sent it. They send it back the results, and I'm like, "You don't even need to tell them anything else. You need to say, hey, this is part of this, and if you want to learn more, I can share with you. If not, just tell me." Some people ask, some people don't. But just knowing that you are able, one of the things when I was working in corporate America in terms of operational excellence is making sure that you have not only the right people in the bus, but the right people in the right seat on the bus. And that is one of the things that the archetypes can help you to do, is not only saying, oh yeah, you're the right person. Now that right person is going to be in the right seat. And sometimes it happened to me. Sometimes I'm interviewing somebody for a role, but then after I see the architect and all that, I'm like, you know what? I think that you will do a lot better and exactly what I need in this other role. Will you be interested on? They will say yes or no, but it's about us to start aiming into that female energy of saying how much we have actually control over our life and our results, and using some of these tools to leverage that. So instead of being like the sailboat moving with the wind whenever the wave move and hoping for the best, being a lot more strategic into, okay, what is what I need, what are my triggers, and then again, where I need to have people that are similar to me, where I need to have people that actually have the skill that I don't have, so that we can start also moving. Because one of my biggest things with my program and my clients is the concept that I believe that the top three were the ones that were there as the strongest, as a survival mechanism when we were in our first 7 years of life. And then it's part of us to take ownership and that CEO role back and start using them more as a board of directors, more as advisors, and then being able to pull into the ones that are not very strong for me. But we all have them all. We all have all aspects of that complex, beautiful watermelon of what a human is. So how we can start not only leverage our already strengths, minimizing our weaknesses, but then thinking about opportunities. When we are talking about a SWAT, opportunities are those dormant skills and power that we have there, but we don't know how to tap into it. We don't know how to bring forward. We don't know how to harvest. And that is where that real magic of us really going back into having it all start becoming very possible, because then we start saying, oh, I don't need to have it, I don't need to do it all. I have all of this other support, and then I can create a path to achieve what it means to me having it all in my life, in my health, in my relationships, and in my business or finances.
Yeah, so good. So I'm glad you kind of circled back to having it all because I think that this is a really interesting piece of the conversation because, like you said, people can think I can have a lot, but I can't have it all. And I was one of those, I was in that thing, right? Like, oh, I can have a great successful business, but it means I need to work my ass off. Oh, I can have a successful business, but that means I don't have time for a relationship. Oh, I could have a relationship, but that means that I don't have time for myself, kind of thing. There was always like this like thing that had to give so that I could have awesomeness in this other part of my life. And I've come to understand that that's not true. I'm still, I'm still a work in progress for sure in that area. And I have to remind myself, no, it is possible. Like I remember having a conversation with one of my best friends over dinner, and she was saying, do you think it's time that, maybe you should start dating? And I was like, I don't have time to date. Guys are a hassle. I just, like, I don't have time for that complication in my life. And she was like, okay, so, and she's a coach, right? And a therapist. And she was like, okay, so I'm just going to reflect back to you that you just use the words complication, hassle. That's kind of, it sounds like that's what you believe relationships are, or that's what you believe men are. And I was like, oh, she said, is it even possible for a relationship or for dating for a man to actually add to your life instead of subtract? Like you have to give up this other thing to have this person. And I had to really do some work around that because that wasn't my experience, right? That wasn't my conditioning. It wasn't my lived experience. And so that is one of the things that I sometimes say to people is like, tell me about this situation or this possibility in your life or this aspect of your life, health, wealth, relationships, any of that kind of stuff. And if we pay attention to the language that we use to describe it, it can give us an insight into what we believe. And is that actually fact? Probably not.
That is the part of where we go into that stop compromising, that we are being believed that we need to compromise, but actually the way to have it at all, because that is another rule, garbage rule that we are being created, that is saying like, oh, having it all means having everything perfect, and that is not true. But what having it all is, with the three bubbles that I work, is health, relationships, finances. What happened is, and this is something that I tell when people say like, we cannot have it all, then I tell them the opposite. There is any time in your life that you didn't have any of them, that your health was bad or you were not happy with this, you didn't have the relationships, you didn't have the money. Almost everybody, 99% of the people, can think on one time where the bubbles were in the rock bottom. So I was like, okay, so if the bubbles can be in the rock bottom, then why they cannot be on a high level? And then I think that is more about, depending on our archetypes and our strengths, to start building them and be realistic that they are not going to stay here without energy and without attention and work. Like a law of physics is, I always put it like when you are playing with a balloon, the balloon is going to be in the air if, as soon as the balloon start coming down, you give it a little pop. It is the same with that. Is okay, so my health is good, my relationships are good, my finances are not going good. Let's not wait until they are rock bottom to start changing it. Let's gonna start building some triggers that we can find, and as soon as the trigger is there, then we're like, oh, time to put a little bit of attention here. The amount of effort and work that we are going to do if we catch it there is going to be a lot less than if we let it be completely in the floor and put it all the way up. So it's about understanding, going back into that female energy, that is a flow, it's a dance that we do with them, understanding that they all can be in a high level and that they all need that attention and that touch and that energy that we put on them to keep them there. And that there are going to be times that one of them, for any reason, is going to start moving down. And then that awareness of, oh, this is coming down. Time to put a little bit more of energy or attention in this area that is not in the minimum stretch hole that we want in our life.
That's so good and so important for us to. keep looking at this, right? And because I think we can always expand into even more awesomeness, like have even more. Like it's limitless. And so just because life might seem good or awesome or whatever it is, right, doesn't mean it can't get any better. It can always get better. And like you said, if there was this time where everything was rock bottom, why couldn't there be an equal time where it's all up here somewhere? So good. This is such a great conversation. I love this. Love it. So if people want to learn more about you, like who do you work with? Who tell us who your ideal client is? Because if people are resonating with this, I really want to encourage you to reach out to Joe and check out what she does. Like it might be a good fit for you to get support from somebody like Joe, because I don't think I was just talking to a staff member of mine today. She's interested in doing this coaching program. And she was like, I know, like it's going to cost the company money. And she was like trying to justify it. And I said, look, is this going to be a shortcut to you getting to the level that we need you to get at? And she's like, I think so. I said, that's all I care about. Get the help, buy the shortcut, and let's just get there. And sometimes especially women, I think we don't, it's not, sometimes it's not easy for us to invest in ourselves. We'll do all the other things before we'll, spend the money on ourselves. But so who's your ideal client? Who do you love working with? Like it's so much fun.
I love, love, love working with working moms that had that little icky feeling of, is this it? Uh, uh, I wish for more, or I dream for more, but I need to be grateful because I already have so much. And I love working with them, and usually are perfectionists, type A. So it is about saying, one of the things that I always say is, if our heart is aiming for more and our heart wish for more, that for me is the best evidence that a future version of us is already living that reality. If not, we will not have that aim, because I believe in a benevolent universe, God, guide, whatever you want to call it. So I would love working with moms that had that desire but are confused, saying like, what is wrong with me? Why I cannot be happy with what I have? I have more than many. And help them to understand that if you are desiring more, is because you are meant for more, and that you can have everything that you want without doing it all in a way that is sustainable for you as a person, for your family, for your finances.
Oh, so good. So good. So we'll put your contact details in the show notes. People can reach out to you if that's a good fit. And so one last question before we kind of kick this off is if somebody can take one thing, just like one little step. We talked about a lot of different things today. What's that one first step they could take to having it all?
Get clarity into what do you want and what make you happy. That is the first step.
So good. Thank you so much, Joe. I love this conversation. Thank you for taking this time to talk to me today and to share your zone of genius with our audience. It's so great.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. It was a pleasure and an honor to be here with you.
So, what was your first reaction when you heard having it all? Did it feel unattainable or exhausting or maybe exhilarating? Maybe a combination of all three? Well, in today's episode, as you heard, Joe, aka the Unicorn Coach, I just love that name, shared some expert advice on how to shake off outdated societal expectations and seize the life you've always longed for. I love this because, as I said, I've been searching for the answer to this question for years. And I think a key takeaway for me was starting with the question, asking for what I want. For some people, that's a revolutionary question. I think that my conversation with Joe made me really question what I think is possible for my life and for my business. But if there's one thing that I know, and maybe you do too, many of us struggle to act on this. But the best person to advocate for you and for what you want is you. And so that means we have to use our voice and we have to speak up. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And don't forget to join me for next week's episode when I'm diving into the topic of plant medicine with the amazing Dana Harvey. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you got at least one gold nugget today. Be sure to grab your copy of the Rich Life Revolution workbook to help you set the foundation for your next level of wealthy. Get it now at richliferevolution.ca, and I'll see you later.